Howdy, y'all. Welcome to HAZEandBARREL CRAFTWORKS here on the HAZEandBARREL Homestead at our humble whiskey room. I'm the Alchemist. And welcome to November, our month of thanks, and week 2 of that month of thanks, where I'm, well, really thanking y'all. Thanking y'all for spending time out of your day and to be here with me and hopefully appreciate the content I provide. Hitting that like, subscribe, that bell, and leaving a comment or two. It means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. And this I wouldn't be here doing this if it wasn't for y'all. And I'm just really appreciative of that whiskey community and all of my whiskey and bourbon friends that I've got out there, and the ones I keep in touch with on Bourbon Auto and other channels, and all y'all who tune in. It means a lot to me. And again, you can see in front of me, I'm both surrounded and truly humbled by all y'all out there who, like to share your favorite pour with me. It really means a lot. And this is really what whiskey community is all about. You share that pour that you have, whether it's like this where you're handing me some samples, or whether it's virtually, over the chat forums that we've got, like our great Bourbon Auto community, where we're having a pour, kicking back, taking pictures of the bottles, and telling everyone what notes we get out of those, and just sharing it with everyone, and inviting everyone to go find that bottle if they like what they read. So it's a great community. And like I said, once again here, I'm surrounded by some more evidence of that great community, and I thought it'd be a fitting way to end this week after all of my technical difficulties with some more of these samples that were shared with me. And I have to apologize, I got a little bit long-winded yesterday, so I'll try to shorten this up a little bit and not go through every bottle like I did yesterday. So maybe I'll try to hold back a little bit today. But these samples here that I've got are from a friend of mine named Scott. And Scott, he did give me a few samples that were very hard to pass up. But one I had to settle on was Calumet 14. And the reason that I had to settle on Calumet is we were in a chat. Actually, we're in a video call with a bunch of us bourbon friends. And in that video call, Scott was sipping on this Calumet, and he was just really talking it up. And I said, you make that sound really good. I wish I could find a bottle of that here in my small town, South Dakota, just, so I can at least just taste it or try it or find out what it's all about. And lo and behold, once you know it, a few days later, Scott delivers some samples. So now I get to see what that Calumet's all about, and I am so appreciative of that. And Calumet, y'all might not realize, but many of y'all might even have some Calumet in your house. Because Calumet, the horse racing estate that Calumet whiskey is named after, is named after the estate, the horse racing estate, from the founder of Calumet baking powder. So there you go. You might have some Calumet in your house. Guaranteed it's not going to taste and smell as good as this, but you may have some in your house. On the nose, the first thing I get is a little bit of barrel. and that's it up front. It's just a bit of barrel. Oh, but that's a creamy caramel. And what was really nice there is I'm going up to take that first sip. That barrel on the nose instantly mixed nicely with that caramel. I mean, it's a nice, viscous caramel. Boy, is that nice. Yeah, and it's sticking to the glass. Boy, rolling slow. Nice legs on that. And that really comes across on the palate so nicely. And now the nose opens up. Gonna go in for just another sip yet. Yep, that buttery caramel or creamy caramel. Yeah, it's buttery. I say that a lot, but when it's that viscous, that nice, that rich, to me, that richness is a rich butter, and this is caramel flavor, not a butter toffee. This is a nice caramel, not a brown sugar like I was talking in. Well, it's supposed to be Wednesday's video, but I don't think it posted until yesterday. So now on the nose, I'm getting more sweet. More sweet caramel, and that cinnamon barrel comes through. And that's really good. But I have to say, so far, really my favorite thing on this one is that viscosity. Oh yeah, that's nice. Yeah, viscosity is nice. That cinnamon comes through. Just a hint of sweet vanilla in there. But that buttery caramel is so good. The finish on the back of the palate, I have to say, is just a touch drying. Nice bit of heat on the front of the palate, just a touch. I believe this is, I don't know if my friend Scott put it on here or not, but I believe this is below 100. Yep, 96.2. So there's not a lot of ethanol on the nose, there's not a lot of ethanol on the palate, but just a nice bit of that heat that I like on the tip of the palate. And that finish, the sweetness is medium long on the tongue, but that dryness in the back of the palate, it stays there. But the sweetness that you get from that buttery caramel is very nice. And that whole experience makes this Calumet 14 a nice pour. Thank you, Scott. And cheers to you. That was a nice pour, and thanks for sharing that favorite whiskey of yours with me. And now we get to share it with all of those who join in. Appreciate it. Now, the next one here has made me smile. My friend Russell. And Russell, he watches my videos. So if you're out there, Russell, you got to know that you really made me smile on this one. First of all, I'll show you his bottles. I mean, he's got some nice bottles too. It's a nice label, a nice wax dip. But look at these bottles. That's a nice bottle. That's a nice wax dip again. That's a nice, healthy sample. And when I chose the one to have tonight, you know, it's even got a nice little cork on there. You get a fun cork pop, even. And as you see, he's just got letters on his. And so Russell, he gave me a little sticky note key to go along with it, with all of his. But before I get into the one I chose, I've got to tell you what really made me smile about Russell handed me some samples here. And that's this, right here. Any of y'all who watched any of my videos in the past, I think it was my 50 and under week, where I had my bottle of 1792, and I showed you all my cork woes with my bottle of 1792. You can see when my beautiful bride put that cork back in, she pushed it in a little bit far because the top broke off of my cork. And you can see kind of what happens there. I don't know if you can see that. No, she's got it shoved. Yeah, there it goes. I get a bit of a drip. And so, in one of my videos, I did a call out to a group of us who were chatting and said, hey, I need that 1792 cork from that bottle you just killed. Well, Russell, he was paying attention, and he sent me a new 1792 cork. So that made my day. That made me smile. It just shows you again what the whiskey community is all about. You know, it's not just a pour you need, but you know, a lot of us keep our corks, and by golly, he gave up one of his to me, and you know, I just appreciate that. And that's another thing I appreciate about the whiskey community. So, thank you, Russell. Thank you for that cork. That's great. But now back to my choice I made. On his key, the bottle I chose was D, and that's a Liberty Pole whiskey, and it's a Liberty Pole full proof. And I've got it written down here on his key, so I'm going to have to read it to make sure I say this right. But it's Monongahela, or Monongahela rye. So a foolproof Monongahela rye whiskey. Well, couple reasons why I chose this one, and forgive me for slaughtering that, but I am just a redneck, of course. But the reason why I chose this one was there's a couple things. Liberty Distillery is known for using heritage grains. And heritage grains, like many of you may know, like a Bloody Butcher Red, using a lot of wheated whiskeys, and it's sometimes the corn, Bloody Butcher corn, using a lot of high corn whiskeys to give it a sweeter flavor. And also, here's another example of them using some heritage grains. This particular rye is a heritage rye that was used way back in the 1700s in the rye whiskeys that were made way back then, when rye was one of the first whiskeys made. And they used this rye pretty heavily in their mash bill. So their mash bill is 61% this Monongahela rye, and then 13% malted rye, and then a 13% malted barley, and then a 13% wheat. So there's no corn in this at all. It's a very high 70+% rye whiskey. What would that be? 74% rye whiskey. And on the nose, that rye comes through. Very crisp and herbal on the nose. And maybe even just a little bit of a, just a slight bit of grain in there too, actually. But that crispy, or that very crisp herbal scent nose is really nice. It's very inviting. Now this has a really nice sweetness. It's not, I can't call it, sugar or a caramel. I would call it more of a, I call it burnt sugar, really. Yeah, and I don't say burnt sugar in a bad way. So, usually when you say burnt, people think negatively, like burnt popcorn or something like this. No, that's not what I mean. Like when you sprinkle sugar on top of a dessert or something, you take your kitchen torch and you torch it and you make that nice, thin, crisp layer of sugar that just crunches in your mouth and has that nice caramelized, sweet, toasted flavor to it. That's what I'm getting. It's like a nice toasted caramelized sugar. And those herbal notes, just fresh herbs. On the nose, the sweetness doesn't come out too strong or too heavy. What's prominent are those herbal notes, and they're really, really quite nice. It's got a nice viscosity, not quite as viscous as the Calumet, which was very creamy. This has just got a nice viscosity to it. Not a creamy viscosity. This one is, to me, more like almost like an ASM, like an American single malt. And the reason I say that is a lot of times when I have an ASM, it's a little bit drying on the palate. But what I get with that is like a bit of toasted nuts as well on the palate. So yeah, the palate's drying a little bit, but it's got that nice, like ground toasted nut flavor that comes with it. That's quite nice. In the back of the palate, in the back of the throat, it is drying without that toasted nut, but mid palate and on the tip of the tongue. Well, mid palate really is where I get more toasted nuts. Tip of the tongue, I still got that caramelized sugar or that burnt sugar, however you want to call it. And that nose, just how I really enjoy that crisp herbal spice. Very nice. So Russell, thanks to you. I appreciate your kindness in providing me with some of your favorite samples. I appreciate you paying attention and sending me a replacement cork. Now my only problem is getting the cork out of that bottle. Now my next example of kindness and generosity in the whiskey community is my friend Jeremy. And this Jeremy's another just really good whiskey friend. I spent a lot of time chatting with him as well in the Bourbon Auto community. And he put together a nice group of samples for me. And the one that was, I have to point out, because it was really tempting to do, but the one that I chose I couldn't pass up, but he's got a mystery bottle. It was really tempting to do a mystery bottle here in front of y'all and just see what the heck it was. But if y'all tuned in on Wednesday's video, which I don't think even made it through with my technical difficulties, even made it through until, today sometime, to be honest with you. No, yesterday sometime, Thursday. Today's Friday. The one that I chose was Starlight on account of I passed up a Starlight in my other group of samples. I have an opportunity here from Jeremy to try another Starlight at about 112 proof. So I had to go for that Starlight. I had my curiosity about Starlight, and I wanted to bit of pour Starlight in, and Starlight, they're grain to glass pretty much. They started out, I mean, they've got like, I think a 700 acre farm, if you want to call it, vineyard as well, because they started out as a winery. And as a winery, then they transitioned into getting a distiller's license, and then making brandy. And then from there, they evolved into whiskey. And they do grow their own grains. They grow their own grapes and everything for their wines and for their brandy. But what's interesting about this is this Starlight is finished in VDN barrels. And VDN, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, but it's Vin D, and then the last word starts with N. It's Spanish, and it stands for orange wine. And this orange wine, they call it fortified with orange, a fortified orange wine. And what they do is they take bitter orange peels and they put it in with the grapes when they make this wine, and then age it in these barrels. And Starlight takes these barrels then and finishes their bourbon in it. And to me, that's just a very interesting concept for finishing a bourbon. And I'm very curious, how much of that am I going to get on the nose and on the palate as we try this one? So I couldn't pass up the Starlight. Jeremy, I'm going to try that mystery one someday, and I'll tell you what I think of that. Okay, now, is it because I want to nose this, or this is real? But I'm telling you, there is definitely some citrus on this. And sometimes the mind can play tricks on you when you want it to be something. It's this, and if you're sitting across the table for something and you say, "Oh, I smell one thing," and the other guy says, "No, I smell this other thing." "Oh yeah, it's that other thing." Have I convinced myself it's orange? I don't know, but it's a pretty prominent citrus if it's not. If my mind is playing tricks on me, it's doing a good job. Okay, now that's nice. That's quite creamy. Again, not quite as much as the Calumet, but a little bit more than the Liberty Pole. Yeah, sometimes I get lost in my thoughts on these, and I take too long in these videos, so my apologies for that, but I get lost in good whiskey, and this is a good pour. that there is, I would have to say, in that sweetness on the palate, there is a bit of the creaminess, but it's a bit of a citrus cream, and it is nice. And I would have to say on the nose, what's coming out more is some barrel notes. But they're not clear to me because that citrus note and now it's more of a sweet citrus after a few sips. So it's a sweet citrus. That's developed quite nicely in there. And the palate really does it's again, is it my head or is this real? But it's a nice orange cream. It's a very nice orange cream. It is creamy, it's orange. This is another one that you can just nose forever because that sweet orange is really nice. Yeah, that orange cream on the palate is so pleasant. And there is still some barrel in there. I noted the barrel earlier. There is some barrel in there, and that barrel is drawing on the palate. The back of the palate, it's ever so lightly dry. And on the mid palate, as the finish is there, it's just all that cream sweetness. The orange has completely dissipated on the finish. Just a nice, gentle cream sweetness on there. On the tip of the palate, I get my favorite thing. I get that little bit of heat in there, although there was no ethanol, no heat on the nose, no heat on the palate, no heat on the back of the throat going down, but just on the tip of the tongue, the tip of the palate, just that little bit of lingering heat that I really enjoy. So, Jeremy, thank you. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for showing all of our friends out here in the Haze and Barrel whiskey community what the whiskey community is all about. Thank you, Russell. Thank you, Scott. And it really shows. Again, I'm humbled. You saw what I had yesterday. You see what I have today. I'm humbled by the generosity and the kindness of all of my whiskey friends, and I'm humbled by the whiskey community we have. And this is why I enjoy whiskey. Not only because there's so many different whiskeys out there to try and to enjoy and to experience, but because the folk out there in the whiskey community that really make it great. So to all y'all, I really love having you all come back around, and I am so thankful for you all. So please, if you would, hit that like, subscribe, and that bell. And as always, please take it easy. Don't drink and drive. Cheers.